World of Warcraft has seen some very dark times. Content droughts, design fiascos, scandals, systems too complex for their own good, and radio silence as community engagement hits an all-time low. And now Final Fantasy XIV and other competitors are closing in. But I don't think this has to be the end of the story for World of Warcraft. What World of Warcraft needs is simpler systems, more content, better community engagement so that the dev teams know what will get players excited to pick up World of Warcraft again. To that end, I have invented a system of my own, a simple system that gives players huge amounts of customization, that lets developers add awesome and useful abilities without fear of spellbar bloat, giving players the ability to upgrade 3 of their spells to be something new. I'm cooking up concepts for 7 of these upgrade spells for every spec. Some of them are returning favorites, some of them are brand new. Either way, Blizzard has my express permission to use every concept I post about in these videos in the comments or on the forums. And if the Blizzard developers are too pressed for time to engage with the community, then I will. I'll get the feedback on this concept, and even if they don't take a single one of my ideas, they'll know what the players want, and most importantly, why. And they can use that to make the game better, because I want this game better. I want WoW to last another decade. Now, as I went along cooking up these upgrades, I was going one class at a time. And when you go one class at a time, somebody's got to go last. And wouldn't you know it, monks were last. Hopefully, that means I learned more lessons by the time I started on monks and therefore made fewer mistakes, but you will be the judge of that. There were some things on Icy Veins that really surprised me, like Expel Harm, a self-heal that does a small amount of damage, was actually part of Windwalker's rotation. Not because of the heal, or because of the small amount of damage, but because the energy to chi ratio was that good. Figure that out. Don't get me wrong, I think it's good when obscure or unusual abilities have a place in your rotation, but that also makes me think it and some other abilities are ripe for upgrading into something more elegant, more intuitive, and of course flashier. I tried to modify abilities based on what would look cool or feel different, and I paid a lot of attention to pruned monk abilities too. But whether the spreads of upgrades that I came up with are good or bad, it's your place to judge. I figure there's no way I didn't make some mistakes, and as always, I fully intend to iterate based on feedback. Without further ado, let's get into the upgrades that I cooked up for Windwalker. The first one is Wave of Light, because of course it is. An upgrade for Fists of Fury that still costs 3 chi. It summons a bell that strikes the ground and radiates light storm damage to enemies within 8 yards every second. The bell lasts for 5 seconds, and you can cast Wave of Light again in the next 4 seconds without incurring a global cooldown to strike the bell and send a projectile of light storm damage to your main target, with the damage dealt depending on the damage that the bell hasn't yet radiated. No usage of this ability can break combo strikes. The Turbo Fists ability increases the damage dealt and causes you to parry all attacks for 5 seconds after the initial cast of Wave of Light. The second upgrade is Chi Bolt, an upgrade for Crackling Jade Lightning that has a 1.5 second cast time and deals nature damage. But there is a chance for your auto attacks to make it instant, cause it to deal more damage, and to generate 1 chi. This contributes to and benefits from combo strikes. The third upgrade is Chi Explosion, an upgrade for Spinning Crane Kick that deals damage instantly and heals nearby allies, dealing additional damage for each unique enemy you've damaged with your single target damage abilities. It consumes up to 3 chi and deals more damage the more chi is consumed. Dance of Chi-Ji and Jab procs can cause Chi Explosion to cast as if 3 chi had been consumed. Which leads to the fourth upgrade, Jab, an upgrade for Tiger Palm. It deals slightly more damage and generates 2 chi, but instead of giving Blackout Kick a chance to cost no chi, it provides a chance for your next Fists of Fury, Rising Sun Kick, Wave of Light, Spinning Crane Kick, or Chi Explosion to cost no chi. Next, we have Blackout Strike, an upgrade for Blackout Kick that deals damage to multiple targets and costs 1 chi. Sixth, we have Jade Mist, an upgrade for Soothing Mist that heals massively over 5 seconds, and while healing, you generate chi and reduce the cooldown of Fists of Fury and Rising Sun Kick every time the healing ticks. Finally, we have Spinning Fire Blossom, an upgrade for Expel Harm. It deals fire damage to your target, and if the target isn't in melee range, it deals additional damage and roots the target for 1.5 seconds. This ability generates 1 chi and contributes to combo strikes. It has a 15-second cooldown. The Reverse Harm PvP talent increases its damage. And now for the thinking. Wave of Light is obviously an import from Diablo 3. It's unique in that it provides either a sustained multi-target damage boost or better single-target damage, and you are the one who chooses which one it does. For that matter, you can choose when to sacrifice multi-target damage for single-target. It can be a few ticks in, just before it expires, or right away after casting it. Often when I add an upgrade, it's either to turn a single-target ability into a multi-target one, or to turn a multi-target one into a single-target one. And here, I've managed to do both with a single upgrade. Though to be honest, I really wanted to draw this Diablo 3 monk ability into World of Warcraft. And considering that World of Warcraft monks and Diablo 3 monks were in development at the same time, I'm surprised there wasn't much cross-pollination between the two playable classes. I mean, there's been tons of cross-pollination between Diablo 2 Paladins, World of Warcraft Paladins, and Diablo 3 Crusaders. Why didn't monks get any cross-pollination? Anyway, I wanted this to be in World of Warcraft because it just plain seemed cool. You know, I've drawn in quite a few Diablo 3 abilities, actually, like 3 Crusader ones for Paladins, I drew in a Barbarian one for Warriors, drew in a few Wizard ones for Mages, even pulled in a few Necromancer ones for Unholy Death Knights. Now that I think about it, should I have pulled Breath of Heaven in, or any of the other Diablo 3 monk abilities? Feedback would be appreciated here. Moving right along, Chi Bolt provides you with another single-target damage ability. It's basically a single-target version of Howling Blast, but for Windwalker monks. This is another instance of me really having a thing for ranged direct damage abilities with no cooldown. Then again, Windwalker could use a little more single-target sustain, so I figure this is as good a way as any of giving it a buff. If it would be better to have something non-random decide when Chi Bolt becomes instant cast. For instance, spending Chi reduces the cast time by 25%, boosts the damage, and this whole thing stacks up to 4 times, or something like that, please let me know. I'm more than open to tweaks, up to and including removing or replacing this altogether. Chi Explosion is an old removed monk talent from Warlords of Draenor. Originally, it had different effects depending on how much Chi was consumed. It could consume as little as 1 Chi or as many as 4 Chi. I decided to keep this version simpler, and just have it consume up to 3 Chi and deal more damage the more Chi gets consumed. It also deals the damage instantly as nature damage, and technically it heals nearby players, including you. Not really sure how useful that's going to be. Actually, looking at the Warlords of Draenor talent grid, it used to be an upgrade to Blackout Kick, not to Spinning Crane Kick. If players tell me to switch this around and have Chi Explosion upgrade Blackout Kick for old time's sake, that is what I will do. The Jab ability used to be the basic Chi builder for monks, but Tiger Palm has since taken its place. I decided to bring Jab back and give it slightly different Chi-preserving effects. If these were the wrong effects, or if a different effect would be stronger, wiser, or more fun, or more balanced for that matter, please do let me know. Blackout Strike was an older name for Blackout Kick. I decided to do what I often do and add a multi-target upgrade for it to help in multi-target situations. Not that monks need it that much, but why not play off of a spec's strengths? I often make moves with these upgrades to cover a spec's weaknesses, but playing off of strengths is a smart idea too. And now and then, I like to mix in a healing upgrade, even for non-healing specs that are part of a class that can heal. The goal here was to make healing pay off by topping off your resources to reward you when you do heal. And I am so crossing my fingers that this doesn't make it optimal to heal a target, cash in on the chi and cooldown reduction, and then heal again. Probably not, considering how many global cooldowns you'd be spending healing and not doing any damage. Spinning Fire Blossom was another pruned ability, since Expel Harm doesn't really deal much damage, but is an alternate chi builder with much greater energy to chi efficiency than Tiger Palm. I figured Expel Harm was ripe for the upgrading. This is trading out a low damage ability for a higher damage one, and to boot, it works a little better while you're closing distances. It does sacrifice self-healing for damage, but I figure that's okay. Then again, some part of me is saying that swapping out a self-heal with minor damage for a projectile damage ability with no self-heal is way too big a shift in flavor. And it's telling me that Expel Harm's place in Windwalker's normal optimal rotation was a mistake on Blizzard's part, and turning that Expel Harm mistake into a damage projectile ability via this upgrade player power system is the wrong way to address Blizzard's mistake. If Monk players agree with the voice in my head, that's a phrase I never thought I would say. If they agree, I am prepared to make some changes, but I'm going to need some guidance. Yeah, that's obvious from the person who's got voices in his head, but I really like Spinning Fire Blossom conceptually. I think it looks pretty cool, so I would like to keep it around in some form, but if players don't like Spinning Fire Blossom, it will go. Your opinion, way more important than mine. Overall, it's my hope that this spread of upgrades improves single target sustain a bit, adds some good looking animations and abilities, and overall improves the fun factor. Actually, adding in flashy abilities that have cool looking animations is one of the main reasons I came up with the semi-borrowed power upgrade system in the first place. I try to have at least one flashy ability for each spec, and I think Chi Explosion, Wave of Light, and possibly Spinning Fire Blossom and Chi Bolt qualify pretty well. Now, when I started out with these upgrade concepts, I went ability by ability, not purpose by purpose, if you see what I mean. I asked myself, which abilities exist in this specs kit that I can give an upgrade to? And when I created upgrades based on which abilities I could upgrade, I often aimed for something that I thought looked or sounded cool. Almost always I wanted the upgraded ability to feel at least a little bit different from the original. Often I tried to create some kind of trade-off, making the upgrade situationally useful based on things like the number of targets affected or having a stronger effect with a longer cooldown, things like that. Rarely did I upgrade the same ability more than once for the same spec, but while I was putting together each spread of upgrades, what I didn't do, and what I probably should have done in retrospect, was to figure out what goals a player would have while they're looking at a list of upgrades, and then make sure upgrades exist in the spread that allow the player to pick upgrades that help them achieve those goals. In my next iteration, I plan to have that design goal in mind, to consider what the player wants to accomplish and how they could accomplish it with the upgrades. I strongly suspect that in this next iteration, there will be a lot more cases where I upgrade the same ability in 2 or more different ways. That will give players more options, and since that's going to be the goal with goal-oriented design, who knows? I might even have 3 different upgrades for the same ability in the end. However, I can do this much more effectively in an environment that has a great deal of feedback available, and that's where you come in. You have knowledge that comes from experience with these specs. I don't. I tried to do my research on Wowhead and Icy Veins for each spec, but inevitably there'll be things you know that I don't because you have experience that I don't have. You'll have more and better ideas than I could hope to have, and I know I need those, so please, let me know what you think of these upgrades and what better ideas you have for what to put in their places. So let's see how I did with these upgrades through the lens of what can a player actually use this for. Well, for single target, there's Chi Bolt, Spinning Fire Blossom, Jab, and Wave of Light. That's 4. I guess Wave of Light is a little bit better for burst and the other 3 are better for sustain, so maybe it's okay that there's 4 things that buff single target instead of 3. For multi-target, there's Blackout Strike, Chi Explosion, and of course Wave of Light. So, it seems like this spread is pretty decent if you strictly view it through that lens. Of course, that's not as important to perspective as whether Windwalker players actually like what they see. If you do like what you see, and this is a decent spread, then that's basically luck of the draw. This might seem surprising since every video I'm doing has a section where I examine these upgrade spreads based on what they can be used for, but while I was putting each upgrade spread together, I actually didn't think about what they could and couldn't be used for that much. To be sure, I did think about what each ability could be used for, but I didn't think about what the upgrade spreads as a whole could be used for. I went ability by ability instead of kit by kit, and I think that was a mistake. That's the main reason I felt the need to add these sections where I re-examine each upgrade spread to evaluate what the upgrades would actually be useful for from the perspective of a player who has a goal in mind. I added these sections to point out to myself what mistakes I probably made in my first iteration, and to let players who are leaving feedback guide my thought process in the right directions. Anyhow, before I pat myself on the back for what I achieved through blind luck, I should hear from actual Windwalker monk players what they think of this first iteration. So please leave feedback and let me know what you think. Of course, I know Blizzard probably won't take many or even any of these suggestions. Heck, they might even have something objectively better in store for us than the semi-borrowed power upgrade system that I've cooked up here. But knowing what gets players excited will be helpful to them even so. That is why I'm sacrificing so much of my free time and energy on Project Decade. And who knows, they might just need these ideas to get WoW going in the right direction. Heck, if this video series just gets the Blizzard developers into the habit of creating a blue post with the thinking in it that goes in depth enough for us to understand what they're doing and what their design goals are, then that would be a huge step forward. Even saying the thinking out loud is sometimes enough to get you a new perspective on what you're doing. Is it really what people want? Does it serve the purposes that it really should be serving in the end? Am I really doing something just to make a system look awesome instead of making the game overall better? What does it do for the fun factor? Am I making the mistake of prioritizing my design goals over the fun factor? Are my design goals the right design goals to have? Do my ideas match the spec's feel and flavor? Is it a net gain? Is it genuinely awesome? Things like that. Plus, we just plain need more communication from Blizzard. If Project Decade gets the development team into the habit of telling us the thinking for every change they make, then the whole project will have been worth it, even if they don't take a single suggestion. Again, if you see something you don't like bad trade-offs or something you know is counterproductive or useless, or if you've thought of an idea that's better or cooler or more useful than mine, then don't hesitate to let me know. The more details you can provide about why you don't like it and what makes one of my ideas counterproductive or useless, or about why your idea is cooler or more useful than mine, the better. One of the main goals of Project Decade is to give whoever's in charge of class design and player power systems a good idea what appeals to players and what will actually get them excited to get back to WoW again. And the more you can say about the wherefore and the why, the better. I fully intend to iterate on this project and make changes in response to feedback. I know I'm going to make mistakes. Heck, I've already seen mistakes in some of the things that I've done. But if those mistakes generate the kind of discussion that Blizzard needs to hear, so much the better. Blizzard needs to see player engagement, humility, and feedback actually making change in action so they can start doing what needs to be done to turn WoW around. It can be done and it should be done. World of Warcraft can last another decade. So keep the feedback coming, folks. There's one last thing. I began working on Project Decade videos back in July, and considering how many months it has taken, the fact that there are 36 different sets of feedback to curate and compile, and multitudes of decisions to make based on feedback received, ideas others have come up with, and how to weave everything together into a fun, functional, and exciting whole, I don't have a chance in the tramaculum of getting this done in any reasonable length of time unless I get volunteers to help me curate and compile the feedback I'm getting. If you're willing to help curate feedback, please let me know. If I get enough interest, I will set up a Discord server where we can coordinate everything. Thank you in advance for your feedback and support. Let's make World of Warcraft the best game that it can be.